Pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to come back to the House of Sweden. I feel like I'm coming home. As Neil said, I spent 5 wonderful years in Stockholm, and so it's nice to come back to this little place of Sweden. And it's particularly nice this time of year to come back, and I don't have to go as far north as actually Sweden. But the winters are marvelous there when it starts to snow. Thank you very much to the members, ladies and gentlemen, of the House of Sweden for welcoming me back, and to the chiefs of the Indian nations. It's a pleasure to be here today, and very difficult act to follow, Professor, with your sincere remarks. I'm going to try to go through this quickly because there's a lot to say. I've had an opportunity to be involved in energy relations between the U.S. and Sweden now for about 8 years, and it's been very exciting. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing. Magnus had suggested, though, that maybe I engage you for a minute with a little bit of a quiz. We are surrounded by this issue. We are fundamentally changing our relationship to energy. And everywhere we turn, there's some new information about it. Just this week in the Washington Post, the business section had another cover-to-cover article about our relationship with energy and the grid, and there was a quiz on it. So let's see how good this audience is. This is multiple choice. In 2010, what percentage of the crude oil used in the United States was imported? Raise your hand if you like this number. A, 32%? Anyone? No takers? B, 49%? No takers? C, 60% was imported. Okay, we're getting a few. And D, 74%. Oh, well, it's not quite as bad as you all think. It was 62%. But the shocking thing we think about is the chief mentioned 1950. We were at 8.4% in 1950. In 1985, we were still at 27%, but in 1990, we were at 42%. So there was a big jump there. This is a dependency, a great reliance, and we all know that this issue is very much about our relationship to the resources that we use, which we're fastly using much more rapidly. Second question, what is the average annual energy cost of single-family home in the United States? Average annual energy cost. A, $2,200. B, $2,900. Got a couple takers. C, $3,300. And D, $5,000. A lot of you didn't vote. That's not quite fair, but it is 2,200, which is the lower of the figures, maybe not as bad as we all think, but it's still incredible. The average salary in the developing world is $846, and the average worldwide salary is $7,000, $7,030. So, so this is a huge part of everything we do. We all know that. Everything decision you make today will involve a decision about your relationship to energy. Now, the final exam, and this is following in I think the theme we've already heard today from both the speakers. This is the final exam. Raise your hand if you have, everybody has a chance to pass this one. Raise your hand if you have children or nieces or nephews or children that you are close to. Good, I think that's everybody. Now raise the other hand. No, keep a hand up there. Raise your other hand if you love them. Okay, we all passed. This is what it is about sustaining a relationship with energy and the environment, as the chief mentioned, that will our children and our children's children will inherit. We in the United States have been working very closely with Sweden on this project, and I have a story to tell. I'm going to try to tell it quickly in 3 parts about what we've been doing with Sweden. And it starts with something called the One Big Thing, because we decided when I was there with Stockholm with Ambassador Wood, who's well known to this embassy, that we would focus the most important part of our relationship with Sweden on the creation of cleaner and clean energy issues. And now, let's see. And it came out of the idea of trying to find the technology that will fundamentally advance our relationship with energy. We use this because the ambassador thought very much of the great company Volvo, which introduced the seatbelt to the world and was the first to have the seatbelt in every car that they manufacture, and it brought safety to everybody, and it was a simple thing that did radical change. We have at the Department of Energy a program called ARPA-E that tries to just do that. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Model T Ford, you know, was built to run on ethanol originally. When the Model T Ford was introduced in the United States, there were more electric cars than there were gasoline-driven cars, and Henry Ford decided to run the Model T on gasoline in the end. This is the image in the United States that we often fight overseas. Ever since that moment of the Model T Ford, we've been going full speed ahead, right? And the question is, when do we have time to think about global warming? Well, in reality, we're doing a lot about global warming in this country, and there's a tremendous market for it for you businessmen that are in the audience. Solar PVs were invented in the United States. The largest solar company in the world is in the United States. The largest fields are in the United States. Wind is the fastest growing energy in the United States. And over 80% of the energy in the United States is under renewable portfolio standards. So there is a rapidly growing market and opportunity here in the United States for these products. We saw that with all the wonderful things that Sweden is doing, because they really got it in the first oil crisis in the 70s, in a number of cities like Lidköping and Helsingborg understood that they needed to make long-term plans. That we could combine our technologies and our engineering and our research and development and reach greater goals. So we, in 2007, started this program involving 6 of our agencies and 45 U.S. Government programs and $100 million. Why do we choose to work with Sweden for the one big thing? Because they have proved it can be done. The question is, when do we start worrying about global warming? And everybody knows in this room, it's now. But when do we have to? When is it going to be positive for the economy? Well, Sweden proved by reducing their emissions over 7% from 1990 to the early 2000s, and increasing their growth by 36%. They reduced reliance on oil and increased their bioenergy by 60%. So there is a great model there to follow. Sweden's has proven that it can be done. The main point, one of the main emphasis of this whole program, for the 3 parts I'm going to tell you, the one big thing, the SAGA, Swedish-American Green Alliance, is to make research and development investment in order to lower the cost of renewable energy and alternative fuels. We've already seen just in the last 4 years that the price of solar panels now is at a very exciting level. It's been decreased by about 1/3. So there's tremendous opportunity. People are saying, big argument about the subsidies, right? And the industry is saying, we don't necessarily need it anymore. I mean, it's good to have government policy, but we're reaching at the point where solar is competitive. This collaboration is across several administrations now. It started, believe it or not, with President Bush and Prime Minister Reinfeldt, who met and endorsed the program and has continued on past them. We are at a tipping point, I think, very much in the United States with these technologies, very much because the U.S. military is now weighing in and has made the decision that it is mission critical for them to have renewable energies and to have energy efficiency. It costs almost $800 a gallon to deliver a gallon of gasoline in Afghanistan, and for every 10 convoys that go, somebody is killed or injured. So for them, it's completely critical. Swedish technology is now being used in biofuels to fly the F-18. It was tested in the Gripen, and it's being used in Boeing airplanes. And that's all a part of the result of the programs that we okay, there's part 2. Okay. Right. And it continues into the next administration. You know our Secretary Chu. Thank you, Chief, for your acknowledgement of what the President has been doing. That's a part of many things. Energy security is one of his top priorities. We spent $80 billion on the Recovery Act on clean energy. We have raised the CAFE standards from they were originally 60 miles per gallon in the 60s. Now he's raised the standard to 35 gallons miles per gallon, and it will be 54 miles per gallon by 2025. All U.S. government buildings are required to reduce their energy carbon footprint, and the President has committed this government to reducing carbon emissions by 83% by 2050. So they're massive programs. Secretary Chu gets a report every month about our relationships and our programs with Sweden through the SAGA network, through our alliance with Sweden. And of course, he's happy to have his picture up here in the Nobel room because of his Nobel Prize award. Do I have the next one, please? Thanks. And the next one, please. So a key part of SAGA, which is the Swedish-American Green Energy Alliance, is two parts, transportation and urban sustainability. As part of that program, we brought 11 mayors to Stockholm for the Clean Energy Summit. Just this last March, we had 4 cities from Stockholm, Sweden, come to the United States to return that visit. There was an agreement between the National Leadership Council of Cities and between the eco communities of Stockholm that includes 1,700 cities. So there's a tremendous emphasis on this program, and that's why the great technology that we're talking about today is so important for what we're doing. Next slide, please. I don't know if somebody's doing this. And the last part of our 3-part program is something called the League of Green Embassies. So now we've been cooperating with Sweden very much on these programs and developing the new technologies. And now we're using our embassies to launch throughout the world some of these technologies and demonstrate what can be done today. As the chief said, no more business as usual, no more talk. We don't need a lot. It's going to be the same. They're going to still be talking the same thing in another year after that. It's time to be doing these things, and we're doing them and showing that technology in our embassies. Welcome any company in the room that's using that technologies to be involved. We're going to be talking with Plantagon about being involved in our embassy's programs. We're using microwind, as you see in the picture here. We're using LED and solar lighting. In Panama, we're using solar hot water heating. In our embassy in Sweden, we put it on district heating. We changed all the lighting to LED. And we have a windmill there down by the water in Stockholm. And we installed intelligent heating devices and heating control. Next slide, please. Tying back now into urbanization, this kind of approach, and I think we'll hear a little bit from USGBC in a minute, of green roofs is very big for all the embassies that we're now building around the world. This is our new one in Berlin. So hopefully we can grow some of the food up there as well. Make use of all the roofs that are available. And the last slide will show you that we're building to LEED Silver standards for all of our buildings throughout the world. The United States government will be required, according to the President, after 2030 to build all of our buildings net zero. So that's a very, very ambitious goal. Next slide, please. So, and next. Okay. We've heard a lot about the problem. This is just to remind us how enormous it is. The UN has outlined that in order to keep within the 2 degrees temperature range, we are currently heading for a 50% increase of our carbon emissions. We need to reduce that by 57%. That means about 27 gigatons annually reducing the carbon. It's an enormous problem. Next slide, please. The chief said that, see the next slide? Is there another slide? The chief pointed out that there is no alternative to water. That globe there is all the water on the planet that we have available, and the little dot next to it is the drinkable water that we have available. Our relationship with energy overlaps with water in an absolutely critical way. This is not just about energy, it's about our relationship to the entire environment and especially to water. So next slide, please. So the reason I'm optimistic is because these programs that we have launched have had real successes. and are making a difference in the world today. I pointed out the Swedish biofuels example. There's a long list. If you go to the Saga website, there's over 600 programs. In Flint, Michigan, Swedish Biogas is doing waste to energy. At the same time, we're introducing the Vantage, the Volt, and the Tesla electric cars to Stockholm, where they're buying them. Many of you familiar from Stockholm, the IBM system is controlling the traffic congestion in Stockholm. Babcock and Wilcox is doing waste to energy bioplants in Helsingborg and in Lidköping. GE has invested a Climate Well Swedish company. Skanska is doing wonderful things here in the United States in terms of their work with U.S. Green Building Council and greening buildings throughout the United States. Atlas Copco just won a DOE grant for geothermal research. It goes on and on. There is a lot that's happening, so there is a reason to be optimistic. But I think the relationship with Sweden and the United States is very critical in that, as we can see from all the things that are being, because we are leaders. And the last slide, please, brings us back to where we are today. The Plantagon is really a key example of that relationship and what we're trying to achieve for 3 reasons. It is in that highly important spot we've identified of urban sustainability. It represents the best of U.S. and Swedish technologies, management, marketing, and taking advantage of the markets. And finally, it is kind of that next seatbelt. It is a revolutionary technology, can offer a key answer to the problems we face. So it's my pleasure to be here in promoting that technology and that solution, and I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the discussion.